Hello and welcome to Region Locked. With the birth of the Nintendo 64, Nintendo realized one problem with their new foray in the console space: third-party support. Many other consoles, particularly those working with disc-based technology, had a plethora of third-party developers helping build the catalogue of games available on their systems. Nintendo, on the other hand, working with a more limited cartridge format, struggled to gain widespread support. They developed a new add-on for the Nintendo 64 called the 64DD, which would help improve the system's capabilities. Though this venture proved to be limited in execution, ultimately being released exclusively in Japan, Nintendo didn't stop there, also looking to help finance more independent studios specifically to release games on Nintendo's platform. Though more than 60 games were announced for the add-on, of the 9 games that did see a release on the 64DD by the end of its production, only one ultimately saw a port for Nintendo's next console, the GameCube. But it would not see publication in the United States. That game was Doshin the Giant. Doshin the Giant was developed by Param in partnership with Nintendo, who published the title in 1999 for the Nintendo 64DD, and 2002 for the GameCube. The initial DD release was exclusive to Japan, of course, as the system never left the country, while the GameCube port was published in both Japan and Europe. The game is presented through spoken narration by a native called Sodaru, from the island Barudo. Sodaru covers his face with a mask and tells a legend of a giant that rose from a sea as the sun rose in the morning, and would return to the surf at sunset. While telling this legend, Doshin, the friendly love giant, makes his appearance. The player takes on the role of Doshin, while Sodaru tells the player about the desires of the island's inhabitants, starting with a simple request such as having more trees or having their hills reformed. In return, the people of the island will shower Doshin with love, in the form of hearts, which in turn help increase his size. However, there is a more sinister side to Doshin. He is capable of transforming into a starkly contrasting version of himself, Jashin, the angry hate giant. With each passing day, the giant will return to the sea. The next day, Doshin returns, though this is not the same giant. Each day, a new generation of giant appears at its original size. This isn't to say that each day is starting anew, as each giant will be recorded, and the islanders' relationship with the giants will be inherited by their next incarnation. Sodaru suggests that the giant may be able to help unite the 4 tribes living across the land. No small feat, and something which will take up the majority of Doshin's time. Ultimately, the game's main goal is to have villagers create monuments towards Doshin, some out of love and some out of hate. Whilst this is the main goal of the game, the player is able to simply spend their time enjoying the island, tending to the villagers for as long as they like. Each in-game day lasts for about 30 minutes, and during that time the player can fulfill requests to bolster their reputation amongst the villagers of the island by improving their quality of life. These range from needing more trees, raising or lowering the ground, removing obstructions, or simply wishing for the gift of a flower from the giant. Doshin only has a few skills at his disposal, all based around his monumental size. He is able to manipulate the landscape by raising or lowering the ground, and his size also allows him to pick up objects and transport them, including trees, villagers, and even buildings. He is capable of jumping in order to avert certain natural disasters, though because of his size, this will affect the landscape beneath him. When Doshin turns into his evil Jashin form, the ability to pick up objects is replaced with the ability to smash the ground, and to fire a shockwave which can alter the landscape. The button can even be held in to continuously fire. Doshin's size grows after the counter around the perimeter of the screen has been filled with either hearts or skulls, indicating love or hate respectively. If Doshin does something that pleases the villagers, hearts will start to form clockwise around the screen, but if he does something to make them hate him, skulls will appear anti-clockwise. The hearts and skulls are capable of overriding each other, as a full circle of only one type is required to make the giant grow. At times with the giant's growth, issues can also arise. Whilst being larger will allow Doshin to move larger objects or traverse the island quicker, he can also more easily crush villagers and buildings under his feet. The villagers rely on a green energy supplied by trees, often required for them to construct new buildings. After some time, however, trees, like all living organisms, will wither away and die. By placing trees near a water source, their life can be prolonged. Placing the wilted old trees together will help them regain their vitality. Giant boxes also appear in a variety of places across Barudo Island, dropping from the sky or found under houses revealed after picking them up. Inside, the player can find a bunch of trees, love or hate, or even new villagers from a random tribe. The boxes can sometimes give clues as to what they contain. There are 4 tribes of villagers: red, green, yellow and blue, with each starting in a different area of the island, all of which request help in building their village. Each colored tribe builds a different monument for the giant. By bringing villagers of different tribes together in uninhabited locations, they are able to start a new village tribe under a shared banner of their combined colors, which will in turn eventually build a new monument, with 15 of the monuments coming from various color combinations of tribes. In order to start the construction of a monument, villagers will ask for a flower from the giant. Flowers grow in an area where there are 7 trees close to each other. Once together, they will wither and die, and 8 new trees will begin to grow in their place, as well as a small red flower. Only 1 flower can be used on the island at a time. If there are 2 or more, only 1 will survive. Natural disasters can occur around the island, causing destruction. This includes the appearance of tornadoes, volcanic eruptions, or the appearance of spirits known as naughties, who will appear and steal villages or trees. Doshin is able to counter these disasters, however, reducing their damage. After each day, the player is shown a list of the actions they performed, as well as a number of comments from the villagers, varying in their value: positive, negative, or simply just indifferent. The game returns the player to a title screen in which they can review constructed monuments in the monument list, check their photos that have been taken in-game in their photo album, as well as check the stats of the previous days spent on the island in the Book of the Giants. Every new day, Doshin will start at the ornamental hairpin, an object which he is also able to move, changing where the player initially spawns on the island. The core concepts of the game remain the same in both 64DD and GameCube releases of the title. There is actually a sequel to Doshin the Giant, though it could be seen as more of an expansion. Roughly translated as Doshin the Giant Tinkling Toddler Liberation Front Assemble, the sequel is a completely different game that requires the use of the original Doshin the Giant. The game takes place at the Doshin Exhibition 96, where Doshin the Giant has been captured, chained up, and stands center stage. The player takes control of a child who is whisked out of their bed and into the world of dreams, where they find the imprisoned Doshin. The expansion's perspective is 2.5D, with the main character appearing as a flat silhouette of a child, maneuvering around a 3D environment via a side-scrolling motion. The child has a heart meter that is continually filling up, resulting in a game over should it reach capacity. In order to avoid this, the child can tinkle hearts out. Doing so on signs and people will interact with them, and signs representing the variety of monuments found in the initial Doshin release. If tinkled on, the player will need to prove that they have a monument built in their base game by switching discs. If successful, a pavilion will be built in the sign's place in the dream world, as well as a queen companion appearing. This queen companion will set obscure tasks to complete in the original Doshin the Giant. If accomplished, the player will be rewarded with a movie. There are 17 movies in total to collect, each with the same title, More Than Giant. These movies are black and white scenes based around the original game. The player can also tinkle on other kids and challenge them to a tinkle contest, with the opponent joining the player's team if beaten, improving the player's tinkle ability. The aim of the game is to tinkle on Doshin, making him bigger, eventually big enough to escape. The game's creator, Kazutoshi Ida, said that at the start of his career in developing video games, he had set himself a personal rule to create 3 games: Aquanaut's Holiday, Tale of the Sun, and last but not least, Doshin the Giant. His initial entrance into game development was to create what he called games without a goal, something which would allow the player to not just be entertained, but to take their time observing and learning more about themselves, whilst they learned more about his games. In this sense, Kazutoshi's approach to game development was to create art over interactive entertainment. His focus is on kansatsu, or observation. It is through observation that people allow themselves to think of new ideas and explore more about the world, as well as themselves. Doshin began development as a Nintendo 64DD exclusive, with the game being released as a launch title for the system, one of only 2. In total, only 9 games were ever released for the system, with many games considered for development on the console ultimately being cancelled or shifted to new platforms. During an interview with IGN, Ida revealed that he believed it possible to convert Doshin to a cartridge-based title easily, only taking out a few features that would only work on the 64DD. He also revealed that the team behind Doshin was made up of only 6 members of staff, and that they were continuing to think up new ideas for Doshin on the 64DD, thus leading to the game's expansion pack. While porting Doshin over to the GameCube, some elements of the game were altered. The mechanic of requiring flowers for building monuments was not in the original release. Several monuments were altered. The ability for Doshin to slide down hills was added, and the GameCube release includes additional islands after completion, as well as multiple endings, whilst the 64DD only had one. Doshin was to be the mascot of the 64DD and RandNet online subscription service that was provided with it. Various items were available to be purchased, including t-shirts, the soundtrack, an art book for Doshin, and Doshin the official guidebook, which was also given away with a subscription. For the short time RandNet was available, subscribers were given a Doshin Christmas card on the second year, and a Doshin newsletter was included with the regular newsletter sent to every member. This, however, only lasted from December to September 2000. Doshin made his first appearance in the US with the release of Super Smash Bros. Melee, as a trophy shown holding a villager in his hands. Jashin would also appear, though both would be known as the Love Giant and the Hate Giant respectively, rather than their given names. One concept that had been considered by Miyamoto for the title was having the game take place across a truly spherical planet, but after presenting the idea to the team behind Doshin, they had already gone far too deep into development to go back and include such an idea. Ultimately, this concept would be given new life with the creation of Super Mario Galaxy. Within the data of Doshin the Giant is an unused graphic showing the face of a young boy, likely used as an early placeholder. The child's identity is unknown. Allegedly, the strange name of Doshin is actually a slightly modified onomatopoeia of the sound the giant makes when his feet tread on the earth. Parham had told IGN in 1999 that the company was in talks with Nintendo of America to bring the original 64DD release to the United States in a cartridge format, as the 64DD was exclusively released in Japan, and thus would need to be converted to work on a standard Nintendo 64 console. Unconfirmed rumors also circulated that Infogrames were interested in possibly publishing the game in the US, but this also never came to fruition. Doshin the Giant's lack of GameCube release in the United States is actually related to the release of an entirely different game, one which wouldn't see release in Europe. Cubivore: Survival of the Fittest received a release in America, another game which was initially created for the 64DD before transitioning to the GameCube. When asked, Shigeru Miyamoto said that both titles were being reviewed by Nintendo to confirm their suitability for international localization. Atlus announced later that they would take on the publishing task for Cubivore in the US, whilst Nintendo published Doshin in Europe, and both developed by two studios who operated as subsidiary groups of Marigold Management, a company that Nintendo had created to recruit independent game companies. The company, a joint venture between Nintendo and Recruit, a human resources company, was formed after Nintendo found the N64 lacking in third-party support. Marigold would provide the companies with financing, as to let the game studio simply focus on the creation of new titles, with the condition being that the games be ready within 5 years. The lack of American release for Doshin, but the presence of Cubivore in the region, suggests that Nintendo wasn't keen on publishing an extensive number of niche titles across the world, due to the risk of failure when it comes to returns on investment. Depending on your interest in gaming, it's either unfortunate for Europe that there was no release of Cubivore, or unfortunate for America that they would never be able to experience life as a giant just trying to spread a little love or hate.
And here we see the mighty Chad Barnin emerging from his slumber for another long day on Patreon Island. Clefairy Village is a peaceful place, with its leaders Vitus Varnus and Trevor Wooten showing great respect for the giant. He performs his dance for the three master gamers, hoping to find a suitable mate. However, Guillermo Chavez, Corey Nelson and Robert Cox don't seem to take interest. This season can be a frustrating time for the beast. Jackie H and Mike Sinistar are already happy together in their home, but Chad will make short work of that. Is it possible the gift of a phantom sonic tree will sway Everett Lathrop? Apparently not. The pent-up rage of the giant becomes overwhelming, causing an error 1355, sending him into an unparalleled rage, even compared to your boy Beowulf. And finally it seems tensions have cooled as the creature has found his match. Here he carries Joshua Bock with pride, presumably to show him off to Malcavio. Next up on Channel 4 we have Gary CXJK and Jetstall7 joining Arkady Skywalker in baking a Jerry Cherry Pie on Cooking with the Patrons, followed by the news at 6.
Hey, thanks for watching, and big kudos and love to our Patreons who continue to help fund this show. My name's Matt Barnes and I've been a part of the channel for a few years now, but this is the first time I've voiced anything. I do read the comments and appreciate you guys are wary of change, but please be wary of my feelings. Constructive criticism is appreciated, just please don't make me cry. Thank you.